I'm here on the floor of the Global Energy Show in Calgary with Julie Lemieux. She is the president and CEO of Triple Point Resources. That's a company that's based here in Calgary, right?
Yes.
But it's also active out east. You're a native from Quebec, but like myself, you've seen the light and become a convert to Alberta.
Exactly.
But you guys do business in Alberta and out east. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the office that we have here is in Calgary, but our flagship project, is in Newfoundland. So we were spin out from a company called Atlas Salt, and they had part of their portfolio of assets, they had the salt dome, and they are focusing themselves on their salt mine for road salt, and they wanted to maximize the value for the investor with the salt dome, and they were starting to have phone calls from different companies to see what they can, if they can use the salt dome. So we decided to spin that out, and we created Triple Point at that time, and now we want to maximize the value for not just for investor, but what we can do with this asset. And
salt mines.
Yeah, the salt mine was on the Atlas Salt. For us, we want to store energy.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different. But salt cavern has been used in the oil and gas industry to store oil, to store gas since the 60s. And it's very important in the oil and gas sector as midstreamer will use it to stockpile, to create reserve, to trade commodities as well. So in the hydrogen sector that is expanding now, and for the expansion of renewable energy, there's no better way of storing energy than building those salt caverns. So using an oil and gas technique for renewable, storing compressed air and hydrogen, that's very unique. And that salt dome is in Newfoundland. It's the only one that we have in Canada. So having a salt dome, domal salt is very different than the type of salt you have here in Alberta, as an example, or in the Sarnia area where it's just a layer of salt. For us, it's domal salt, so the thickness of the salt deposit we have is very important. And you can build way larger cavern, and you can store more easily hydrogen in it. The smallest molecule having salt that is very tight, that makes it very interesting. And for us, it's a proven salt dome. We've tested the salt from it. We have a lot of core from the past, so we know it's a secure, proven asset ready to support the industry.
We were chatting a bit about our fondness for Newfies before we started rolling here. I was saying some of my favorite Albertans tend to actually be Newfoundlanders. They have the faith of the convert because they've chosen Alberta. Like you came from Quebec. I came from Ontario. What's the difference between your projects in, say, Alberta and Newfoundland? Newfoundland's offshore for all of this kind of thing. What's the difference in the technology and the kind of caverns?
Well, it's not that different. And the salt dome is in Newfoundland, just under the Trans-Canada Highway, 30 kilometers from the ocean, 30 kilometers south from the town of Stephenville. That makes it an onshore asset. But the main important aspect is it's one of the most prominent wind corridor in the world, one of the best ones. So there's a lot of massive wind farms that are coming to be in operation in Newfoundland. And the only way you can store the excess energy that we will have from the renewable that will come online, and it's already the electricity out there is with hydro. So to gather and store somewhere all the excess that you have on the grid, there's no better way than using salt cavern. And the power line is just above our head. So it's even better. And I see you shaking your head on this concept.
Well, the technology. I mean, it's okay. Without making this a science class, as much as you can, just explain it to me, like, so for I can understand it for our viewers. How does this technology work?
Yeah. So first, I will go back to the salt deposit. So it's a 5 kilometers structure by 4.5, almost 2 kilometers deep, and there's massive salt that is super tight. So what you're going to use as technique to do a cavern is you're going to drill on surface all the way to the base of the cavern you want to create, and slowly you're going to inject water. So you do solution mining. and we'll create a cavity that's roughly 80 meters wide by 200, 300, 400 meters high, depending of the project we want to attach. And then you have an empty space that is ready to accommodate either a gas, or in our case, we believe we need to support the grid to start with. So the best way there is to use compressed air energy storage. So those type of projects have been around the world happening, and basically it's just that you have compressor that activate when there's excess power on the grid, and the more excess power, the more you activate these pumps on the ground, and it just pumps air and it compresses it on the ground. Once you release it, that's where the beauty is, and you can imagine it's like pumping your tire. So you pump your tire to a point.
That's energy.
And that's energy. And then when you release it, air is coming out. That air will funnel through a turbine again. You can regenerate power, and you will regenerate electricity for the grid when it needs it. So it acts a little bit like a pacemaker, if you want. So you charge those caverns. So it's massive kind of battery that you have available. Then once you have one cavern, you can build another one and another one. And we can build 20, 30 of those caverns over time. So it will be an asset.
You said they're like 5 kilometers?
Yeah.
Like, how big are these things?
5 kilometers by 4.5 kilometers, 2 kilometers deep. That's the deposit itself. But the cavern inside, it's like little candle that you will have inside.
Oh, so it's a bunch of smaller caverns within it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot of rules and regulations.
That seems to be important for safety, I would imagine, because that'd be like an atomic bomb stored up of compressed air.
Well, compressed air is just that. It's compressed air, so you will release it no matter what. The other thing is you can have electrolyzer as well. So when there's excess power, you can electrolyze it and store the hydrogen on the ground. And what we believe is because of the wind corridor, we can have a clean energy reserve for Canada. And we can have our own energy reserve that will be clean. That's something that is different from like in the US and Germany and France. They store reserve of oil on the ground in those salt caverns. Like the US, they have enough oil in those caverns to be able to provide oil for the entire U.S. for many months. We can have
strategic reserve, yeah.
Exactly, there's strategic reserve. So you have the same thing in different countries. We don't have that here in Canada, but I think with the call that we have to bring project of national importance, that brings another aspect of what else we can do to become a superpower. This is it. I think for Atlantic Canada, having that reserve and that we can use for ourselves. And I know some people believe in the hydrogen, some other don't. And on top of that, you can have the export. Well, the export is just above our head. You regenerate power and put it on the grid for us Canadian and bring more business in Atlantic Canada.
How many of these projects have you guys got going? You've got one big one in Newfoundland. What about or on the rest of Canada?
We are laser focused on that one in Newfoundland. That's the having a salt dome. Like I said, it's very different here in Alberta. You have smaller cavern, so we try to find the right partner to develop this one. And we have a lot of people around. There is a lot of projects that are very similar inside, like ACES Delta in Utah is a massive project where you need to do something with that excess energy, like wind and solar. It's great when there's a lot of wind, and it's great when there's a lot of sun, but what you do when it's not there? You need to be able to harness that energy. You can use battery. They will be depleted pretty quick. But salt cavern bring the answer for really long-term storage when you decide when you want to release that power. So you create renewable on demand. That's the magic with using
that would seem to be a game changer, because storage,
exactly,
getting that energy when it's needed that's one of the big key weaknesses of a lot of those renewables. So that would seem to be a game changer if you're able to bring that.
Exactly, and that's something that we've been talking about for the last 2 years, and now you see that there's a lot more traction and there's a lot more interest about Atlantic Canada with the wind resources they have there. And yes, we can have another cavern for natural gas, or we can have another cavern for oil. At this stage, we want to see and continue to advance those clean energy projects, and they're all coming together. So I think for Canada, it's another opportunity we have on our superpower side.
Well, thank you very much. That's fascinating stuff. I know you've talked to some of our reporters before, and I'm sure we'll be talking again.
Yeah, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.